We had someone finally, and I shouldn't say finally, but we had someone who knew the ropes. And as my father would say, we had a guy who'd been around the horn a couple of times, and Sandy knew what he was doing. He did. No matter what anybody said, that guy was confident, and he knew what he was doing. He was our program leader, and he was a good one. His connections propelled us into a national level for consideration and recognition we hadn't gotten a lot of before. I don't want to say local, but we kind of went on a national level when he came here, because he knew people all over the United States. And there's people here that had him and know exactly what I'm talking about. You might like Sandy or not. Few people didn't like him. The students loved him. I was a little bit jealous. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, we're fighting for recognition and favor, and those kids, they treated Sandy like he was Papa Smurf. He was Papa Smurf to them. And they loved him. He was a guy who always thought he was right. Ever met one of those? But with him, he usually was right. He always thought he was right, every little issue. But and then when you study it and look at it, he was right. And I had a real high, as well with all the other faculties there, Peter. I had probably more of a regard for them than they thought I did. But we were always under the gun here and under pressure, small faculties, and we were busy a lot. We owe Sandy, as well as other instructors here, a great deal of gratitude for what they did for this program. And after we hired Sandy, Craig came on the scene, if I'm correct with my calculations here, Craig. With two of them in succession, I was telling Craig a while ago, I think we had 20 years of continuous positive progress in our program, instead of having these humps and bumps every 3 or 4 years. And that's the way it is. Other faculty, I knew almost all the faculty up and down the East Coast, all the way up into Newfoundland and Canada, and they run into the same problems too. But we had 20 years of continuous positive progress in the program. You hear it takes a village often in this age it takes a village. Well, it did. And in this room tonight, I say it's filled with villagers who played a big role in the success and value of the forestry program here at Dept. There are graduates of this program now throughout the United States and the world. They're all over the place. I started out with a Biltmore stick, a hatchet, a hard hat, a pair of calipers, scale sticks, a mechanical tally instrument, crews and scale sheets, almost everything that I used in the 70s before I left or retired had been replaced with handheld computers. I recently saw a handheld log scale the other day that measured the end of logs with 2 lasers. I could not tell you how many times I've been over to scale lumber and logs. And now they've got little lasers that shoot out of the end of a handheld, and it'll very accurately measure the small end diameter of a tree. At our fingertips, we could now collect field data in a computer, download it in the office, and not have to recall not one of Mr. Lockhart's equations or formulas to do this calculation. Now, he says amen to that. and you know exactly, those of you in the industry know exactly what I'm talking about. GPS gave me valuable directional and navigational data in a nanosecond. I loved that thing when I used it in my classes. I taught orienteering and started using the GPS, and that was so great to get distance and bearings and things like that real quick. The cell phone, let me say something quick about that. That was a big boom to my industry. Any of you can remember a bag phone? Well, that's what I had for a few years. excuse me. And I can remember the first telephone call I made from White Oak Flats. I had a harvesting crew back there with a skidder, a loader, a bulldozer, you name log truck, and you're waiting on something to happen, and you're that far off the main road. And at lunch, I couldn't wait to get that bag phone out. That thing was heavy and cumbersome. And I made the first call into my secretary out here just to check in with her and say, hey, this is great. This is a new thing you've given me. And it gave me a new sense of confidence in myself and safety. I mean, if something happened and you're 3 or 4 or 5 miles back in the mountain here, at least I have a phone I can have first aid out at before we come out. And I remember that old bag phone, and I didn't used to use that very much, and I think I got a flip phone, and that would work in my labs too. The wood timber industry is becoming more competitive than ever. Our new LT300, if you haven't seen it, is computerized. Never again did I have to memorize my set works like Tom and I did at Old Dabney Mill. You'd have to know 2 4 1/4, 6 1/2, 7 3/4, 9. You have to know those things backwards and forwards all the way up to saw logs. I didn't have to do that. This mill down here, you don't have to do that. It'll remember where you are and go right back and start all over again if that's what you want. But we had an old Frick sawmill, and my wife said, be sure and explain that name. That is the name of the sawmill. We had an 01C steel mill down there, and I used that thing for 20-some years, and I thank God in heaven every day that nobody got hurt on that thing, and I was blessed. It was dangerous, and I had students down there that I worried about, but not to the point where we couldn't function. But I was always thankful at the end of every lab in the spring when it was done. But we had an 01C mill that we had modernized considerably, but somebody told me here a while back, I bet you cried when that thing went up the hill when they sold it. I didn't cry. I love that old mill. It was a good old saw mill, but it was dangerous, and I was glad when we got to LT300. Yes, you could get hurt on it, but you got to really try harder to get hurt with that mill than the one that some of you all trained on. That thing was dangerous. When you have a 54, 56, or 60 inch saw flying around and sawdust and things like that. But we were blessed to have it. And we had it for a long time, and then we put the LT300 in. That LT300 is a lot safer, and it's in its own $1 million building, and we have edger and conveyance from one end to the mill to the other. Makes it just a whole lot easier for us to work. The age of our students has always been around 18 to 19. I thought I'd say that. Young backgrounds of our freshmen at that time started to come in here with a different idealism, different culture. They were more environmental and ecology oriented. Oftentimes much more interested in planting trees than harvesting trees. We weathered the anti-logging mentality of the 70s, and this nationwide anti-logging movement mentality caused us to adapt our curriculum to the students coming in, the product, and the current industry needs. And this continues, I think, to challenge Billy and I think it was named here in a minute, Scott. I knew that was going to happen. That's when you know you need to be at the conclusion that I am. I know it challenges Scott and Billy, trying to keep up with those that mentality. In conclusion, I'd like to say that, I had to go have an injection in my knee the other day, and I asked my orthopedic doctor, when do I need to consider replacing my right knee? And he told me when you have more bad than good days. And my best Chuck buddy said the reason I have this bad knee is living in West Virginia all these years on that mountain. But what I want to say here is I had a lot more good days at Dabney than I had bad. We as faculty had to manage a lot of different things, multiple personalities. And then we had to go to class with a smile on our face. I honestly can say that I was never bored. I never looked at a clock except when to go to work and to get to class on time. That's a lot to say. I've had jobs where I looked at the clock every 5 minutes. And somebody may ask, this did contribute to my desire to stay with this job all I've been. And I will say, my administration let me do my job with little interference over the years. That's another good thing. You don't have somebody standing over top of you watching your every need. I think I said a moment ago, I worked with about 14 different instructors during my years here. I really never worked with one that could not manage our program successfully, and oftentimes they did. This program had managed this program. I was only program head here 4 years, or 3 years, I think, something like that. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to say I had done it. And that's why I took that position when that was offered to me. Having faculty come and go had advantages and disadvantages. One was new ideas when new faculty comes in. Bad thing might be our momentum was broke. It might take several months to settle down after a faculty left, since I've gone through so many of them. Student reaction may be they're glad they're gone. It might be they're indifferent. Glad, mad, or indifferent, but they would settle down. After a few weeks or a few months, they would settle down. And then we moved on. I wish, and Craig, I think you can back me up on it. I don't think we really had too many disciplinary problems, really, that we couldn't handle. I don't want to say that we had a bunch of diverse people in this program, but I can't really say. None of them ever slapped me, so I think that's pretty good. But I don't think we really had any real heavy disciplinary problems. But it's hard to make a lot of people happy, and that's a big part of our job, is making people happy. After I call it the Johnson, Riciner, Haverlack, Nottingham, Perkins era, 4 faculty and 1 technician, we went to 2 faculty. I always thought this about our program, and I'll say this for the first time in public. It stretched us out pretty thin, and I always looked at this as 2 men loving the same woman. Great for her, but a little testy for us guys sometimes. and that's the truth. And I'm free and Craig. Finally, there was a certain order to all this. This wasn't Milton McGrady and all you faculty out here doing whatever you wanted to do. Maybe with Ed. I'm just kidding. I love those guys. I do. I'll tell you right now, I do. But there was a certain order to this, and let me say this in conclusion. We took our skills and knowledge from required guidelines and curriculum outcomes set forth by the Virginia Curriculum and Instruction Board, the Society of American Foresters, the Forestry Board members of our program, Council of Eastern Forestry Technology Schools, Virginia Forest Industry, parents, students, and the community to prepare these individuals to be productive candidates for the forest industry, and we did just that with pride and honor. What I want to do right now is mention a couple more names, and I'm done. Marge Clark. Did we mention Marge? Marge Clark. Bill Leishner. I want to mention Travis Myers. He's a young graduate that's done a lot for me, and I think this program too. He's on the board. Judd Smith Logging, certainly West Rock and that forestry department up there. All these equipment companies that brought us new equipment in here. I never got a chance to thank anybody. I just retired like that author. I just faded away out of this thing. Tom Cover, Bennett, Logging and Lumber, many, many more. I couldn't have done it without them. I I could not have done it without it. I'm one man and I have limited skills, and I never said that I didn't. And all these people that helped us, I appreciate it, and I'm sure every faculty member here. Lastly, I'd like to thank God for this opportunity, and all of you for being here tonight and letting me enjoy what I've enjoyed this night, because I don't know whether I deserve it or not. And the parts that you played bringing us together here tonight. And I want to thank, for the last time, Dabney S. Lancaster Community Colleges for the memories that we all share. Thank you.